Hello and welcome to Cloud Learner's Journey Part 2 of Azure Solutions Architect Real Exam Questions and Answers with Explanation. And you can also find reference links in the description. To become an Azure Solutions Architect, you must pass AZ-104 and AZ-305 exam. You can also go through AZ-104 exam video series and links are available in the description. If you like the video, please do like, share, comment, and subscribe to our Cloud Learners Journey channel to help you pass AZ-305 exam and become an Azure Solutions Architect. Question 1. You are designing a SQL database solution. The solution will include 20 databases that will be 20 GB each and have varying usage patterns. You need to recommend the database platforms to host the databases. The solution must meet the following requirements. The solution must meet a service level agreement of 99.99% uptime. The compute resources allocated to the databases must scale dynamically. The solution must have reserved capacity. Compute charges must be minimized. What should you include in the recommendation? And the options are A. An elastic pool that contains 20 Azure SQL databases. B. 20 databases on a Microsoft SQL server that runs on an Azure virtual machine in an availability set. C. 20 databases on a Microsoft SQL server that runs on an Azure virtual machine. D. 20 instances of Azure SQL database serverless. And the correct option is A. An elastic pool that contains 20 Azure SQL databases. The compute and storage redundancy is built in for business critical databases and elastic pools with an SLA of 99.99%. Reserved capacity provides you with the flexibility to temporarily move your hot databases in and out of elastic pools within the same region and performance tier as part of your normal operations without losing the reserved capacity benefits. Next, question number 2. You are designing an application that will aggregate content for users. You need to recommend a database solution for the application. The solution must meet the following requirements. Supports SQL commands, support multi-master writes, guarantee low latency read operations. What should you include in the recommendation? And the options are A. Azure Cosmos DB SQL API, B. Azure SQL database that uses active geo-replication, C. Azure SQL database hyperscale, D. Azure database for PostgreSQL. And correct answer is A. Azure Cosmos DB SQL API. With Cosmos DB's multi-master writes replication protocol, every region supports both writes and reads. The multi-region writes capability also enables unlimited elastic write and read scalability, 99.999% read and write availability all over the world. Next, question number 3. You have an app named App1 that uses an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database named DB1. You plan to migrate DB1 to an Azure SQL managed instance. You need to enable customer managed transparent data encryption for the instance. The solution must maximize encryption strength. Which type of encryption algorithm and key length should you use for the TTE protector? And the options are A. RSA 3072, B. AES 256, C. RSA 4096, D. RSA 2048. And the options are A. RSA 3072 and D. RSA 2048. TTE protector can only be an asymmetric RSA or RSA HSM key. The supported key length are 2048 bytes and 3072 bytes. Next, question number 4. You have an on-premises storage solution. You need to migrate the solution to Azure. The solution must support Hadoop Distributed File System HDFS. What should you use? And the options are A. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, B. Azure NetApp Files, C. Azure Data Share, D. Azure Table Storage. And the option is A. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Data Lake Storage Gen 2 allows you to manage and access data just as you would do with a Hadoop Distributed File System. The new ABFS driver used to access data is available within all Apache Hadoop environments. These environments include Azure HD Insight, Azure Databricks, and Azure Synapse Analytics. Next, question number 5. You plan to deploy 10 applications to Azure. The applications will be deployed to 2 Azure Kubernetes service clusters. Each cluster will be deployed to a separate Azure region. The application deployment must meet the following requirements. ensure that the applications remain available if a single AKS cluster fails. Second, ensure that the connection traffic over the internet is encrypted by using SSL without having to configure SSL on each container. Which service should you include in the recommendation? And the options are A. Azure Front Door, B. Azure Traffic Manager, C. AKS Ingress Controller, D. Azure Load Balancer. And the correct answer is A. Azure Front Door. Azure Front Door is Microsoft's modern cloud content delivery network, provides fast, reliable, and secure access between your users and your application static and dynamic web content across the globe. Next, question number 6. You have a .NET web service named Service 1 that performs the following tasks. Reads and writes temporary files to the local file system, writes to the application event log. You need to recommend a solution to host Service 1 in Azure. The solution must meet the following requirements. 1. Minimize maintenance overhead. 2. Minimize costs. What should you include in the recommendations? And the options are A. An Azure App Service Web App, B. An Azure Virtual Machine Scale Set, C. App Service Environment, D. An Azure Functions App. And the correct answer is A. An Azure App Service Web App. Azure App Service is a fully managed platform for building, deploying, and scaling web apps. By hosting Service 1 as an Azure App Service web app, you can minimize maintenance overhead as the platform takes care of the underlying infrastructure patching and scaling. Next, question number 7. You need to design a solution that will execute custom C# code in response to an event routed to Azure Event Grid. The solution must meet the following requirements. The executed code must be able to access the private IP address of a Microsoft SQL Server instance that runs on an Azure virtual machine. Second, costs must be minimized. What should you include in the solution? And the options are A. Azure Logic Apps in the consumption plan, B. Azure Functions in the premium plan, C. Azure Functions in the consumption plan, D. Azure Logic Apps in the integrated service environment. And the correct answer is B. Azure Functions in the premium plan. Azure Functions in the premium plan is the best solution to meet the requirements. With the premium plan, you can execute custom C# code in response to an event routed to an Azure Event Grid. Additionally, the premium plans allows you to access resources in a virtual environment, such as private IP address of a SQL Server instance running on an Azure virtual machine. Next, question number 8. You have an Azure subscription that contains the SQL servers on Azure shown in the following table. We have the columns name, resource group, and location. SQL SVR1 is in resource group RG1 at location East US. SQL SVR2 is in resource group RG2 at location West US. The subscription contains the storage accounts shown in the following table. We have the columns name, resource group, location, and account kind. Storage 1 is in resource group RG1 at location East US with account kind Storage V2 general purpose V2. Storage 2 is in resource group RG2 at location Central US with account kind blob storage. You create the Azure SQL databases shown in the following table. We have the columns name, resource group, server, pricing tier. SQL DB1 is in resource group RG1 in server SQL SVR1 with standard pricing tier. SQL DB2 is in resource group RG1 in server SQL SVR1 with standard pricing tier. SQL DB3 is in resource group RG2 in server SQL SVR2 with premium pricing tier. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. And statements are: when you enable auditing for SQL DB1, you can store the audit information to storage 1. And the correct option is yes, because auditing works fine for a standard account. Second statement, when you enable auditing for SQL DB2, you can store the audit information to storage 2. And the correct option is no. There is an auditing limitation. Premium storage is currently not supported. Third statement, when you enable auditing for SQL DB3, you can store the audit information to storage 2. And the correct option is no. It's the same as the second. There is an auditing limitation. Premium storage is currently not supported. Next, question number 9. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure Blob Storage account named Store1. You have an on-premises file server named Server1 that runs Windows Server 2016. Server1 stores 50 GB of company files. You need to store a copy of the company files from Server1 to Store1. Which two possible Azure services achieves this goal? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Options are A. An Azure Logic Apps integration account, B. An Azure import-export job, C. Azure Data Factory, D. An Azure Analysis Services On-Premises Data Gateway. E. An Azure Batch account. Correct options are B. An Azure Import-Export job. You can use the Azure Import-Export service to securely export large amounts of data from Azure Blob Storage. The service requires you to ship empty drives to the Azure data center. The service exports data from your storage account to the drives and then ships the drives back. And the second option is C. Azure Data Factory. Big data requires a service that can orchestrate and operationalize process to refine these enormous stores of raw data into actionable business insights. Next, question number 10. You have the resources shown in the following table. Columns are name and type. AS1 with type Azure Synapse Analytics Instance, CDB1 with type Azure Cosmos DB SQL API account. CDB1 hosts a container that stores continuously updated operational data. You are designing a solution that will use AS1 to analyze the operational data daily. You need to recommend a solution to analyze the data without affecting the performance of the operational data store. What should you include in the recommendations? Options are A. Azure Cosmos DB change feed. B. Azure Data Factory with Azure Cosmos DB and Azure Synapse Analytics connectors. C. Azure Synapse link for Azure Cosmos DB. D. Azure Synapse Analytics with Poly-based data loading. And the correct option is C. Azure Synapse link for Azure Cosmos DB. Azure Synapse link for Azure Cosmos DB creates a tight integration between Azure Cosmos DB and Azure Synapse Analytics. It enables customers to run near real-time analytics over their operational data with full performance isolation from their transactional workloads and without an ETL pipeline. Thank you for watching part 2 of Azure Solutions Architect Real Exam Questions and Answers. We hope you found it informative and helpful. If you liked the video, please like, share, subscribe and comment to our channel for more related topics. We look forward to continuing the journey with you in next videos. Thank you.